I realized my family forgot my birthday again when I saw my brother's yacht invitation pinned to the top of our group chat. It was 8:17 p.m. My birthday had officially been alive for 20 hours. No call, no text, no we'll celebrate later, just a glossy digital flyer that read, Evan turning 35, white and gold yacht celebration. If you've ever smiled through something that quietly broke your heart, then you're in the right place. And before we go any further, if you understand that kind of quiet hurt, subscribe to the channel and tell me the city you're watching from. I want to know how far this story travels, because I have a feeling it won't just belong to me. My name is Natalie Cross. I turned 30 that night, and my family forgot again. Not maliciously, not dramatically, just completely. The group chat was busy. Mom, so proud of my son. Dad, big year ahead. My sister-in-law, Ashley, this is going to be iconic. That word felt heavy. My birthday message from Mom the year before had been, hope you had a peaceful day, peaceful. As if I were aging quietly in the background, I stared at the yacht invitation again. The marina, the gold balloons, the DJ lineup, sponsors tagged. Evan's grin in the promo photo was wide and practiced. Confident. Centered. He had always been centered. When he turned 21, my parents rented a banquet hall. When he turned 30, they surprised him with a Vegas trip. When I turned 25, Mom asked if I wanted dinner at Olive Garden. That wasn't cruelty. That was hierarchy. Evan was the bold one, I was the stable one, and stable people don't require celebration. At 8:29 p.m., I typed into the group chat, looks nice. I considered typing, it's my birthday, but I didn't. Because I wanted to see if anyone would remember without being prompted. 3 dots appeared from Mom, then disappeared. Then Ashley responded instead, Nat, you should totally come. It'll be good for you to get out, good for me. As if I needed social rehabilitation. I set my phone down and walked into the kitchen. My apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't accuse you, it just reflects you back at yourself. I opened the fridge. There was leftover Thai food. Sparkling water. No cake. Because I had told myself I didn't care this year. At 8:42 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Direct message from Evan, hey, can you send $5,000, vendor short-term float for Saturday? I'll square it next week. I didn't even blink, because that part wasn't surprising. The forgetting was consistent. The asking was punctual. I sat at my dining table and opened my banking app. I filtered transactions by recipient, family. The list scrolled and scrolled and scrolled to dollars. 0. Mason's Gap month, $3,400. Parent property tax miscalculation, $6. 200. Evans failed crypto venture, $1,800. Emergency dental for Mom, each labeled temporary, each. Never discussed again. I exported 3 years of transfers, total $41,380, $41,000. For a daughter who was so independent, Mom loved that word, Natalie's so independent. She never needs much, she's always been strong. Strong meant absorbent. Independent meant available. The candle aisle at the grocery store was almost empty when I got there at 9:05 p.m. I bought a small vanilla cake, no name, just happy birthday written in uneven blue icing. The cashier smiled. Special occasion, yes, I said. For who? Me? She blinked, then smiled softer. Oh, happy birthday, to words. It felt heavier than anything my family had said. Back home, I lit one candle. Not because I was dramatic. Because I wanted the day to exist in physical form. The flame flickered gently. I made a wish I didn't say aloud. Then I picked up my phone. I opened the transfer screen. Recipient, Evan Cross. Amount, $1 memo, happy birthday to me. I stared at the screen for a long time. This wasn't anger. It was symmetry. I hit send. 10 seconds later, what is this, Evan? I didn't respond. 30 seconds later, Nat, I'm serious. 1 minute later, is this some kind of joke? Mom entered the chat. Sweetheart, did you mean to send $1? I let the silence stretch. For years, I had rushed to correct discomfort. This time, I brewed tea at 9:27 p.m. I replied, yes, nothing else. My phone rang instantly. Evan, I answered. What are you doing? He demanded. It's my birthday, I said calmly. Silence. Then, oh, yeah, happy birthday, flat, dismissed, and the transfer he pressed. That's what I felt worth. The quiet that followed was sharper than yelling. You're being petty. No, I said softly. I'm being exact. He laughed, but it wasn't confident. You live comfortably. You don't have kids. You don't have expenses like I do. There it was. Stable equals disposable. I have expenses, I said. You know what I mean. Yes. I did. Mom texted again. Family doesn't nickel and dime each other. I typed back. Family doesn't forget birthdays. The group chat went silent. And for the first time in years, I didn't rush to smooth it over. Because something had shifted. Not loudly, but permanently. Before I tell you what happened when I showed up at that yacht party unannounced, and why my $1 transfer became the most expensive decision Evan ever made, let me ask you something. If someone only remembers you when they need your money, are you loved or are you leveraged? I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was angry, because I was remembering. There's a specific kind of pain that isn't explosive, it's quiet, repetitive, familiar. The kind that makes you say, it's fine, until one day it isn't. I turned 30 on a Thursday. My brother's yacht party was Saturday. Friday morning, Mom called, not to apologize, to negotiate. Natalie, she began softly, your brother's stressed. I stared at the skyline outside my apartment window. He should be, I replied, that's not fair. What isn't? This isn't about your birthday. Exactly, that was the problem. It is for me, I said, silence. Then the gentle pivot she had perfected over decades. You've always been different from Evan. Different. Another word that sounded neutral but carried weight. He's expressive, emotional, you're steady. Steady meant I didn't collapse. Steady meant I didn't demand attention. Steady meant I didn't require maintenance. You don't need celebrations the way he does. She continued. That sentence lingered in the air. You mean I don't react when you forget? That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Mom exhaled slowly. We just assumed you understood. Understood what? That love in our family was louder for him? Growing up, birthdays followed a pattern. Evan's were events. My 8th birthday was a backyard carnival. My 10th birthday was a rented arcade. My 15th birthday was a DJ in the garage. My birthdays were dinners. Not because they loved me less. Because they thought I needed less. When I graduated college, Mom framed Evan's acceptance letter to business school. Mine went in a drawer. When Evan's startup failed, Dad stayed up late with him reviewing numbers. When my first job offer came through, Dad said, good. You'll be fine anywhere, fine anywhere. The compliment that doubles as dismissal. I'm not sending the money, I said again. You're humiliating him, I'm calibrating him. She didn't like that word. You're punishing your brother. No, I said, I'm correcting the assumption. What assumption? That I'll always cover it. Mom grew quiet. Natalie, she said gently. You've always been strong, I know, and sometimes strong people don't realize how intimidating they are. I almost laughed. I intimidate you by not asking for help. You don't lean on anyone. Because no one leans toward me. Silence. This one landed. The truth often does. I didn't realize you felt overlooked. She whispered. I closed my eyes briefly. I don't feel overlooked. I said softly. I feel. Background. That word changed something because background isn't absence. It's presence without focus. Later that afternoon, I booked a flight to Miami. Not to cause a scene. To see clearly. If I was background, I wanted to see the stage from up close. The marina was loud when I arrived Saturday evening. White outfits everywhere. Gold accents catching sunlight. A live saxophonist warming up. Evan stood at the center of it all, sunglasses, white blazer, handshakes flowing. Mom floated beside him like a publicist. Dad laughed louder than usual. I stood at the edge of the dock for a moment, watching. No one noticed me at first. That was familiar. Then Ashley spotted me. Oh my God, Natalie. You came. Her tone carried surprise. Not warmth. Mom turned. Her face flickered, shock, then recalculation. You didn't tell us you were flying in. I didn't think I needed to. Evan approached slowly. You're really doing this? He asked under his breath. Doing what? Making a point. I looked around. Champagne towers. A customized sculpture with E35 carved into it. A DJ booth with LED panels. How much is this costing? I asked. He hesitated. Not your concern. It becomes my concern when you text me for $5,000. His jaw tightened. It was temporary, so was my birthday. That landed harder than I expected. He looked away. Mom stepped in gently. This isn't the time, it never is. There is never a convenient time, to be honest. Guests began boarding the yacht. Music grew louder. The sun dipped low over the water. And then I overheard something I wasn't meant to. A vendor speaking urgently to Evan. We're still short. How short? Evan hissed. $10,000. My stomach didn't drop. It steadied. Because for the first time, I wasn't the silent solution. Mom walked toward me. Natalie, I held her gaze. You could fix this. There it was. Direct. No performance. You could, she repeated. I shook my head slowly. No, her face changed. Not anger. Fear. You'd let him be embarrassed? Yes. The simplicity stunned her because embarrassment had never been his burden before. It had always been absorbed by me. Before I tell you what happened when the DJ stopped the music and why my $1 transfer echoed louder than any speech that night, I need to ask you something. If you've always been the stable one, what happens when you step back? The DJ didn't stop the music all at once, it faded. Like someone slowly lowering the volume on a lie. At first, no one noticed. Guests were laughing. Glasses raised. Phones out for stories and slow-motion champagne pours, but near the stern of the yacht, I saw Evan's posture change, rigid, focused. The vendor stood close to him, jaw tight, tablet in hand. "We need confirmation," the vendor said firmly. 10,000 clears this now, or we dock. Not float, not continue, dock. That word spread faster than the music fading. Mom's face went pale. "Evan," she whispered. He looked at her like a child who had been caught but still expected rescue. "Natalie," she said softly. "I didn't move." "Natalie," she repeated, stepping closer. Guests were starting to notice the shift, whispers forming in small clusters. The saxophonist stopped playing entirely. The DJ removed his headphones. Everything felt suspended. "You could fix this," Mom said again. I met her eyes. Yes, the word startled her. Hope flickered. "And you won't?" "No." Silence, the kind that hums inside your ears. Evan turned toward me, anger breaking through the polished exterior. "You're enjoying this." "I'm observing it. Don't be cold." "I'm not cold," I said calmly. "I'm not covering." The vendor checked his watch. 5 minutes. Mom's breathing quickened. "You'd really let this collapse?" "Yes." "Over one birthday?" "No," I said quietly. "Over 10 years." That landed. Because this wasn't about one forgotten text, it was about patterns. When Evan was 16 and crashed Dad's car, I covered the deductible. When his first business failed, I helped restructure his debt. When his second startup burned investor trust, I sent for $1,000 to bridge the gap. When he forgot my 28th birthday, Mom said, "He's overwhelmed." When he forgot my 29th birthday, she said, "You know he loves you." And when he forgot my 30th birthday, he remembered to text for $5,000. This wasn't about pettiness, it was about equity. "You're humiliating your brother," Mom said, voice trembling. "He's humiliating himself." I replied. Guests were fully watching now. Phones lowered, conversation stalled. Evan's jaw clenched. "Fine," he snapped. "I'll call Mark." "Mark." "One of his investors. Not me." The vendor crossed his arms. "Payment confirmation or we cut the bar." That got attention. Real attention. Mom turned back to me one last time. "Please." The word felt different now. Not assumed. Requested. And for a second, just one, the old reflex tried to surface. The reflex that smoothed. The reflex that absorbed. The reflex that made sure no one else felt discomfort. But then I remembered the cake. The silence. The group chat. "The hope you had a peaceful day." "No," I said softly. And something shifted. Not in me. In them. Evan dialed. His tone changed instantly. "Professional. Urgent. Double quotes. Yes. I need 10 wired now." "No, not tomorrow." Now. He stepped away. Mom stood frozen beside me. "You've changed," she whispered. "No," I said. "You're seeing me." That sentence held weight. Because for years, they had seen stability, not presence, responsibility, not emotion, independence, not invisibility. 5 minutes later, the vendor's tablet chimed. He nodded, cleared, music resumed. Guests clapped. Assuming it had been part of the spectacle, the DJ leaned into the microphone. "Let's keep this energy up." Energy. As if nothing had cracked. Evan didn't look at me for the rest of the evening. Mom did. Differently. Not annoyed. Not disappointed. Recalculating. When I walked off the yacht, the marina lights reflecting against dark water, my phone buzzed. A text from Evan. "I get it." 3 words. No emojis. No defensiveness. Just clarity. I didn't reply. Not immediately. Because silence is powerful when you've spent years filling it. Before I tell you what happened the next morning, when Mom called me with a tone I had never heard before. "I need to ask you something. If someone only respects you when you stop giving, were they respecting you at all?" My phone rang at 8:03 the next morning. Not the group chat. Not Evan. Mom. I let it ring once. Then answered. Hi. Her voice wasn't sharp. It wasn't defensive. It was tired. "Are you home?" she asked. "I'm at the airport." There was a pause. "You're leaving already?" "Yes." Silence. The kind that signals emotional inventory. "I didn't know he was that exposed," she said quietly. "I did." "How?" "Because I've been stabilizing him for years." Another silence, not denial, recognition. "I thought you didn't mind," she whispered. "I didn't," I said, until it became expectation. Expectation without gratitude turns into entitlement. She exhaled slowly. "I didn't see it." No, and I didn't see you." That one stayed between us, not dramatic, just honest. "You called me too independent," I said gently. I thought it was a compliment. It wasn't. She didn't argue. I used it as reassurance. She admitted, "If you didn't need much, I didn't have to worry. I did need things." "Why didn't you say something?" Because saying something would have meant disrupting balance. Because I didn't want to compete for attention. Because I didn't want to be the emotional one. Because strong daughters are trained not to ask. I thought you saw me, I replied. I saw you as steady, she said softly. Not as someone who could be forgotten. The airport announcement echoed faintly behind me. Boarding for Chicago, Mom's breathing steadied. I'm sorry, she said. 3 words, different this time and not reactive, reflective. I'm not angry, I replied. I know, I just won't fund imbalance anymore. She didn't argue. That $1, she began. It wasn't petty, no, she said. It was precise. That surprised me. Your father noticed, she added. Noticed what? That we only celebrate noise, silence, and you've never been noisy, she said. I didn't think I needed to be. You don't, she replied. For the first time in my life, that sentence felt grounded. Not dismissive. Grounded. What happens now? She asked. You adjust, I said. And you, I stay in my own center. That sounded dramatic. But it wasn't. It was recalibration. On the plane, I replayed the last 24 hours. The music fading. The vendor's tablet chimming. Mom saying please. Evan saying I get it. I didn't feel victorious. I felt balanced. Because nothing catastrophic happened. The yacht didn't sink. The party didn't implode. He solved it. Without me. And that was the point. When I landed in Chicago, my phone buzzed again. Evan. I've been relying on you, that was it. No justification. No excuse. Just acknowledgement. I stared at the message for a long time. Then replied, I know. No anger, no emoji, just clarity before I tell you what happened 3 months later. And why my birthday this year felt different without anyone changing their personality. I want to ask you something. If you stopped cushioning someone's life tomorrow, would they fall? Or would they finally stand? 3 months later, my phone didn't ring at 8:17 p.m. It rang at 7:02 a.m. Mom. Happy birthday, she said before I could speak. Not late. Not vague. Not hope you had a peaceful day. Clear. Intentional. Thank you, I replied. There was a softness in her voice that hadn't been there before. Are you doing anything tonight? Yes. What? Dinner? With who? Myself, she laughed lightly. I love that. That was new too. Not correcting. Not suggesting I get out more, just accepting. Evan texted an hour later. Dinner's on me if you're free this weekend. No request attached. No follow-up ask. Just invitation. I didn't jump. I didn't assume. I just said, sure. The truth is, nothing dramatic changed in our family. Mom didn't transform into a radically different person. Evan didn't suddenly become deeply reflective and cautious, but the dynamic shifted subtly. Permanently, when someone has always relied on your steadiness and you remove it, they have two choices. Resent you or recalibrate. They recalibrated. Evan downsized one of his ventures. He stopped. Assuming I'd bridge his shortfalls, he called for advice, not for transfers. Mom stopped describing me as too independent. She started describing me as thoughtful. The word changed, not because I softened, because I stopped funding imbalance. And here's what surprised me most. When I stopped sending money, I didn't feel mean. I felt visible for years. My generosity had been the loudest thing about me. When it disappeared, my presence remained, not as a sponsor, not as a safety net, just as a daughter, just as a sister, just as Natalie, the girl who turned 30 with a cake that had no name, but who finally understood something simple. If someone only notices you when you give, you were never centered. You were leveraged. So tell me, if your family forgot your birthday but remembered your bank account, would you keep proving your love with money? Or would you price your absence at exactly $1? And if this story felt uncomfortably familiar, if you've ever been the quiet foundation under someone else's spotlight, subscribe to the channel because we don't tell loud revenge stories here, we tell calm ones. The kind where the power shift isn't explosive, it's precise, and sometimes, precision is louder than fireworks. Tell me the city you're watching from. I want to know how far this story traveled. 3 weeks after the yacht party, Evan called again, not urgently, not dramatically, just casually. Hey, he said, quick question. I was at my desk, spreadsheets open. Quarterly projections half finished. Okay, I'm restructuring a deal, just need a short bridge. Nothing crazy, I didn't speak immediately. He filled the silence. 2,000, I'll wire it back. In 10 days, 10 days. I used to believe that timeline. I swiveled slightly in my chair and looked out the window. Chicago skyline, gray and steady. How's the liquidity? I asked calmly. Pause, it's tight. And reserves. Invested, in what? Silence. Then a faint sigh. You're doing that thing again. What thing? Interrogating. No, I said softly, I'm evaluating. 3 months ago, I would have opened my banking app. This time, I opened nothing. I'm not sending it, I said. Silence. Not anger. Not outrage. Just recalculation. Okay, he replied. Just like that. No guilt trip. No family helps family, just bouquet. That startled me more than resistance would have. You're not going to argue? I asked. He laughed lightly. I learned. What did you learn? That you're serious, that was it. Not that I was mean. Not that I was selfish, serious. The word felt balanced. After we hung up, I sat still for a moment. Because something important had just happened. Not because I refused. Because he didn't escalate. He adjusted. That's the part no one talks about. When you stop cushioning someone's risk, they don't always collapse. Sometimes they mature. That night, Mom called. Did Evan ask you for money? She asked. Yes, and I said no, silence. Then, good, that word felt heavier than any apology. You don't sound surprised, I said. I'm not, pause. He needs to build without leaning, that was new. Before, it would have been, he just needs support. Now it was, he needs to stand. I leaned back against my couch. I didn't want to fight. I admitted. You didn't, she replied. You just stop. Exactly. That's what changed everything, not the argument, the absence of automatic rescue. Later that week, I received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small, gold-edged birthday card, handwritten from Evan. I never realized how automatic you were to me. That wasn't fair. Thank you for being stable. I'll learn to be. I read it twice, not because it was poetic, because it was accountable. For years, my stability had been invisible. Now it was visible because it was no longer guaranteed. That weekend, I went to dinner with friends, real friends. People who had shown up on my birthday without reminder, who had sent texts at midnight, who had brought cupcakes to my apartment unannounced. I told them about the yacht, about the $1. They laughed, not mockingly, admiringly. That's savage, one said. No, I replied. It was balanced. Balance doesn't scream, it corrects. Before I tell you what happened 6 months later, when Mom handed me a framed photo from the yacht party and said something I never expected. I want you to think about something. If you've spent years proving your love with money, what would happen if you proved it with boundaries instead? 6 months later, I flew home for Thanksgiving, not because there was a crisis. Not because someone needed a transfer, just because I wanted to. That difference matters. The house looked the same. From the outside, white siding, brown shutters, the same porch swing that creaked when you sat to. Far left. Inside, Mom had already started cooking. Dad was watching football. Evan was in the kitchen, actually helping. That was new. When he saw me, he didn't make a joke about big city salary, he hugged me fully. Glad you're here, he said. No subtext. Just fact. Dinner was loud in the usual way. Politics avoided. Recipes debated. Dad telling the same story twice. But something subtle had shifted. No one made a comment about how I must be doing well. No one hinted at money. No one implied availability. After dessert, Mom disappeared into the hallway and returned holding a small frame. I wanted to show you something, she said. She handed it to me. It was a photo from the yacht party. The sunset behind us. Evan in his white blazer. Guests blurred in the background. And me standing next to him. Centered. Not cropped. Not half visible. Not background. Centered. I didn't post this one, she said softly. I know, I didn't realize how often I edited you. The word edited hit me gently. Not accusation. Acknowledgement. I thought I was highlighting him, she continued. I didn't see that I was dimming you. I studied the photo. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't symbolic in an obvious way. But it mattered. Because for years, I had been the stable shadow. The one who handled logistics. The one who absorbed tension. The one who sent transfers quietly. And when I stopped, when I priced my presence at $1, something recalibrated. Not just financially, emotionally. Mom sat beside me. I used to say you were too independent, she said. You did. I meant I didn't understand how to show up for you. That was new. I thought independence meant distance. It doesn't, I said softly. It just means I won't beg, she nodded. I see that now. Evan joined us a moment later. He looked at the framed photo and smirked lightly. You made that party expensive, he said. I know, and necessary. That surprised me. For me, he added. How? He shrugged. I thought you'd always be the backup plan. I was, yeah. Silence. Not anymore, he said. No resentment, just clarity. Later that night, after everyone went to bed, I stepped outside onto the porch. Cold air, quiet street, distant traffic. I thought about the cake with no name, the $1 transfer, the music stopping, the vendor waiting, the recalibration. Nothing exploded. Nothing dramatic shattered, but something precise shifted, and sometimes precision changes more than anger ever could. So let me ask you something honestly. If you stopped being the quiet solution in your family, would they panic? Or would they finally learn to solve their own problems? Because here's what I learned. Love doesn't require you to shrink. Family doesn't require you to subsidize. And independence isn't selfish. It's self-respect. If this story felt like something you've lived, if you've ever been the stable one who quietly carries more than anyone notices, subscribe. And tell me the city you're watching from. Because stories like this travel further than we think. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can send is $1.